So before we get into today's video, I think there is one thing that is very important, and that is if you want to speak fluently, speak more like native speaker, the one thing you need to keep in mind is that you need to try to make your speech like try to say, try to make your conversation conversational. That means just keep it simple and use simple words, simple sentences, and that's okay. So let's get into today's video. So today we're going to talk about season 3, episode 6, and the title is Sunset. So the title Sunset is for the final scene of today's episode because the final scene is the time of the final scene is sunset. That's why the title is called Sunset. So let me see. Okay, so the opening part of today's episode was that there's a police officer. He got an order that he was sent to a place, and he was sent to looking on a lady who was living on the border of Texas, I think. So the reason why he was sent to there was because her daughter called 911 that she hadn't heard from her mother in a while. So she was quite worried about that. She asked police officer for help. So when this officer he got to the place, he tried to look into the house from the outside, and then he saw there was a cup of coffee put on the table. And that coffee was still hot because you can tell from the screen that there's some hot steam coming out from the cup of coffee. So apparently there was someone inside the house there. But when he knocked on the door, no one answered. So he felt strange about that. This officer, took a look around the house. Then he found something odd. So he approached a shed outside of the house, and then he found a body, the lady's body, lying on the ground with a lot of flies flew around. So this lady had already dead for hours or maybe for days. So it was probably people inside the house was the killer. So he called for backup, and then he shouted at the person in the house to show themselves. So a man came out, and that man was one of the guy of the twins. But this police officer, he didn't notice there was another one coming from his back. So he didn't notice that. And this other guy of the twins take the axe and kill this police officer. So that was the opening part of this episode. So we all know that the twins, they were not allowed to kill Walter White because of Gustavo. So they needed some place to stay. And this lady was just a guy got picked up by the twins just because they need a place. So he got killed by that. So from the last episode, we knew that Jesse and Walter they had gone their separate ways. They had a falling out in Saul's office after Walter told Jesse that he was back into the business. So in the first day of Walter's new job, in the morning he got a call from Skylar, and she asked about how to tell this, how to tell their divorce to Walter Jr. And then she also asked Walter he could not pay for the bills with those dirty monies. But Walter had already made up his mind. He agreed with the divorce with Skylar, but he will continue to provide for his family. So he didn't explain anything more. He simply handed out the phone and headed to work. So in the new lab, in that huge in that underground lab, when he got there, he found every appliances were all set up by his new assistant. Uh, his his name was Gail. So Gail introduced himself to Walter. He got his bachelor's degree from University of New Mexico, and then he got his master's from University of Colorado, and then his specialty was organic chemistry. So Walter took a he took a look at his resume, and then he was curious about something on the side table, and that was the coffee machine set up by Gail. But this coffee machine was kind of different. It's nothing like the normal one. It's a coffee machine made of laboratory equipments. So it's not like some Panasonic or some whatever brand it is, uh, coffee machine. It's a very special one. So Gail explained that to Walter that the reason he set up this was because he wanted to control the temperature when he was brewing coffee. So the reason why he did this was because if he overboil the coffee powder, it could leach something taste bitter. So in order not to become like that kind of thing, he can use these appliances to control the temperature. So Walter, he gave it a try uh, about this coffee made from this system, and the taste amazed Walter. So he even made a joke that how did he not come up with this before? If he could come up with this before, then he didn't have to make meth. He could simply set up this, appliances and sell coffee, and it would be a good business. So he was very satisfied with Gail's qualification, and that day, in his first day of work, he had a good day and with Gail. So after some parts of the manufacturing process finished, he was quite curious about how Gail ended up like this. So it turned out that Gail was about to pursue his doctorate after his master's. But we all know that uh, if you want to pursue your doctorate, you sometimes you need to get some funds or some money to support your research. But Gail, he was a nerd and he wasn't really good at doing these things to interact with people. So he said that he was tired of all these brown nose, these curry favor things, and he simply likes being in the laboratory. And then Gustavo was the only one who really respect him. So that's why he worked for him. Yeah. And on the other side, Jesse, he wanted to get back, he wanted to produce and sell his mess on his own. So he gathered his friends to try out the meth he made himself. And everyone said that was excellent. So that really boosted his confidence. So, he got to the point and told his friends that he wanted to get back to business and he needed their help. But in the first place, when his friends heard about this, they were kind of hesitated because all the things like before, like Combo's death, and that really scared them. But Jesse told him this time they don't push their luck. They simply kind of be being cautious about every steps. And yeah, and at the same time, Hank, he was currently surveilling Jesse's house. We know that from the last episode, he found he found that Jesse's RV was sold by Combo, and he got a picture from Combo's room, and this picture with Jesse and Combo. So he put all together these pieces, and he knew that Jesse was the key man in Heisenberg case. So he parked his car uh, on the side of the road outside of his house, and he was surveilling him. When he was waiting in the car, he got a call from Marie for checking in. And then Marie know that Hank was obsessed with this case. So she also know he was currently watching Jesse. So he advised that probably he could go to Walter for some more details. And you might wonder why she bring this up, right? Why she talk about Walter? Because in episode one, when Walter trying when he tried to conceal what he was truly doing, he actually lied to his family that the relationship between him and Jesse was that Jesse sold marijuana to him. So Hank and Marie, they still bought it. That's why she recommended Hank to ask Walter. So when Walter got a call from Hank talking about this, he knew that Hank had already getting closer and closer to the center of the case. He was already, and he, no, he was almost find out the truth, going to find out the truth. So he knew that he had to wipe out every evidence inside the car. So he rushed to the place where uh, where the RV was. And Badger's, that place was a body shop owned by Badger's cousin. So Badger was one of the friends of Jesse, and his cousin, his name was Clovis, Clovis. Yes. So Walter, he rushed to there, he drove to there, and he told Clovis that he needed to help him to deal with this RV. So they found another guy. He was the owner of the scrap yard. They plan to kind of wipe this car out. So Jesse knew about this and he was pissed. So he rushed to the scrap yard and he asked Walter why he even think about doing this. But what he didn't know was that Hank was currently surveilling him. So he got to there. That means uh, Hank found the place as well. So Jesse and Walter, they scare shitless and they lock themselves inside the car. So when Hank got there and he found that type of RV, he knew uh, this was the one he wanted. He was kind of happy about that. Then he tried to pry the door open. But when he was doing this, the owner of the scrap yard came out. He showed up and he asked Hank, did he get any search warrants or whatever? But Hank, he simply took out the tape on the door and showed those bullet holes, and then he said that was the probable cause. That was the probable cause. So he didn't have any search warrant that he could get inside the car. But that was the time that Walter thought of something. So he taught Jesse to say something to Hank. And what Jesse said was, how did you know there were bullet holes before you took those tapes off? How did you know there were bullet holes before you took those tapes off? So the reason why Walter taught Jesse to say this was because if you want this probable cause hold up in the court of the law, this probable cause has to be obvious. You can see something illegal is happening right in front of you with your bare eyes. So Hank knew that he couldn't talk them into this. So he get back to the car and called his colleagues for help. So he was staying in the car and waiting for search warrant which waiting for search warrant. So inside the RV, Jesse and Walter they were nervous. And then Walter called Saul for help. And so he thought of the way to get Hank out of there. He asked his assistant to pretend like she was the police officer, and then call Hank and told him about Marie got a car accident, and that was very that was uh, she got a serious car accident and she was transferred to a hospital somewhere. And actually to Hank, Marie was more important than Heisenberg case. So without any hesitation, he rushed to the hospital wherever that was, and then he left the place. So Jesse and Walter they got away with this, and they asked the owner of the scrapyard to deal with that RV as soon as possible to obliterate every evidence inside the car. So when Hank got to the hospital, he couldn't find any listing for Marie. And then when he was nervous and he was kind of uh, running around in the hospital, he got a call from Marie, and Marie asked him what did he want to eat for dinner, and that was the time he knew that he got played by someone. So that's just the beginning for Hank because there was something more dangerous coming to him in the future, and the danger was the twins. So we know that the twins were not allowed to kill Walter right now, but they can't wait any longer. So they kept showing up in Gustavo's restaurant to give him pressure. So one day, in the sunset time, Gustavo had an appointment with the twins in the suburb after the work, and he gave his permission that they could they could touch the DEA agent, and that was Hank Schrader. So Gustavo told the twins that even though that was Walter betrayed Tuco, but Hank was actually the real one who pulled the trigger and killed Tuco. So if they want to vent their anger, they can vent their anger to Hank. So that was the end of the episode. And the ending scene was sunset. And the ending scene, that's why the ending scene echo with the title, Sunset. And that's it. That's all about this episode.